and maybe at times I go overboard.
I have the right to call you in the dugout anytime.
That's not the way it's going to be, George.
You're damn right it is, and if you don't like it, you're fired.
You haven't hired me yet.
If you want to play for me, you want to march with my army, that's the way you got to march. Because I take the responsibility now for all I've done wrong, but I feel I do know how teams must play to win and how people connected with that team, with the organization, must be disciplined and focused.
Yankees win. The Yankees win.
Loyalty is very important. Loyalty probably ahead of anything else. They've got to be loyal to me, and they got to trust me. Loyalty and trust are the two things you got to have. And I try to give the same thing back. Whereas in the early years, maybe I didn't do that as much as I do today.
This giant billboard tribute to George Steinbrenner, the boss at the new Yankee Stadium. He died today after a massive heart attack this morning. He was 80 years old.
He's more than just an owner to me. You know, he's a friend of mine, and he'll be deeply missed.
This is SportsCenter.
The death of George Steinbrenner. Derek Jeter joins us on the set at the All-Star game, and more reaction from all over the sports world. The battle for World Series home field advantage tonight. We go inside the American League and National League locker rooms. Who will win and why? Also, Tiger talks. Don't miss how he handled the tough questions and why he's made a major change just before the British Open. And Hall of Famer Lawrence Taylor arraigned today. We'll take you inside the courtroom for all the drama. SportsCenter continues now.
Here's what's happening on SportsCenter at this hour, presented by Verizon Wireless. Zydrunas Ilgauskas following LeBron James to the Miami Heat. He is expected to sign a 2-year contract later this week. Terms have not been finalized. More NBA news at this hour. Reports today that the Minnesota Timberwolves have agreed to send power forward Al Jefferson to the Utah Jazz for 2 future first-round draft picks. He averaged 17-9 last season after coming back from major knee surgery. Will help fill a void in Utah. Carlos Boozer went to Chicago. As we cross the top of the hour, SportsCenter continues. Jay Harris and Brian Kenny. He was arguably the most influential and recognized owner in all of sports. George Steinbrenner died this morning at the age of 80.
A complex figure and a divided legacy as well. You only need to go to Dave Winfield, part of our Baseball Tonight staff. You heard from him earlier here on SportsCenter to figure that out. And yet the Yankees didn't have to become an empire over the last 3 decades. But they did. Much more now on George Steinbrenner. The Yankees, of course, at the All-Star game, well represented. They have their manager there as well. Here are the Yankees and manager Joe Girardi at Anaheim at the All-Star game.
You know, that was extremely important. You know, obviously, I don't think we were thinking, you know, that this would be, the year, or a year that he wouldn't be seeing us be able to finish this year off. You know, but just to be able to win that championship, the first year of the stadium, obviously that stadium's there because of him. You know, let's do this for Mr. Steinbrenner. Let's do this for the fans. You know, is what was driving us.
The thing with the boss he's an old football coach, so in his way, you know, he sort of looked at the baseball season like we played 12 games and we had to win every single day. But he really expected to win every night, every day. I remember in my second year, I was on third base and got doubled off on a line drive to the infield. And we won the game, and after the game, he's yelling at me for don't ever get doubled off again. And I'm telling him that we won the game, but you know, he expected perfection.
The one thing I can share with you is in '04, he wrote me a handwritten note, and it was hand-delivered by a clubhouse kid. And at that point, I got a little nervous, and I said from GMS. And, you know, he said this, and that. I still have this note, but in the end, he basically said, I'm counting on you with capital letters, you know, exclamation point. And to this day, I hold this dear, and I think we're still playing for him, not to let him down.
Winning the World Series meant a lot to him, but the next day he was back at work. He was like, okay, how are we going to win next year? So I really believe that he enjoyed it, but he stayed the course all the time. We experienced that in 1996. We won in 1996, and we were told that he was already planning for 1997 when they were planning the parade.
George used to hand me, Bible verses before some of my playoff starts and stuff like that. And, that was just, he was tough, but he was always there to support you also, And again, I don't think enough is said about the support that he would give you, but it was tough support. So I think sometimes the tough support doesn't get, quite the limelight.
That from the Yankees, including their manager Joe Girardi at the All-Star game in Anaheim. This statement released today from the Steinbrenner family. It is with profound sadness that the family of George M. Steinbrenner III announces his passing. He passed away this morning in Tampa, Florida at the age 80. He was a visionary and a giant in the world of sports. He took a great but struggling franchise and turned it into a champion again. Let's go back to Carl Ravitch hosting our All-Star coverage in Anaheim.
In Anaheim, you see the two big red angel caps outside, and of course inside tonight we'll have a huge crowd, as there will be one watching as well, seeing how the Yankees and the rest of the American League try to defend now ultimately what is a 13-year run. They haven't lost in 13 years, 7 wins in a row. And of course the game will be seen on Fox television, and the two men who will describe the action, Joe Buck and Tim McCarver. And I would imagine the same way when we woke up this morning that the day and the tone of the entire All-Star game changed a little bit when you heard about the passing of George Steinbrenner. So
that was Joe's first question to Joe Girardi, as a matter of fact, Carl. His reaction, and Joe, of course, said he was shocked. I was shocked, and Joe and I haven't talked about it, but I assume you were shocked too.
Yeah, I think anytime you have a celebration like this, and you have somebody who was a titan in this business, and legitimately one of the great American businessmen in the last 50 years pass away, it does change the tone. But it is a celebration of the game, and it's a celebration of the game he loves, so we go on.
A game dedicated to him, by the way.
Tonight's game will be.
Yes.
How will the telecast be different, if at all?
Well, we're going to come on the air talking about it with our pregame. We're going to have a moment of silence built into the pregame here at Angel Stadium as part of it. Tim and I, I'm sure, will talk about it. We're going to have many opportunities with the Yankees all over this game, and then we're going to go off the air talking about it too.
You grew up in this game, and your dad obviously seemed to, I would imagine, have a relationship, if not just professionally. What other ties to him did your dad have, and what did you know about him?
Ohio. They were both Ohio guys, and so my dad had a real fondness for George. I think George really liked him, so I learned at a young age. I saw the softer side. I saw the philanthropic side, the work he did with boys and girls clubs, what he did with the police officers and kids of officers who were killed in the line of duty in Tampa. He did have that side to him, not just the fist pounding, I want to win, but he was a very complex man.
You know New York really well. It's almost like a piece of sea glass that over the years it just gets softer around the edges. That seems to be the perception from everybody today, is it got softer at the end.
Well, I was working with the Yankees when George was at his peak in 1999, 2000, and 2001. I worked with Bobby Mercer. And when Joe and I did the World Series in 2000, even though I worked for the Yankees, I'm not too sure George thought that I wasn't really pulling for the Mets to win the World Series. Some clubhouse guys at Shea Stadium told me that in the 9th inning with Al Leiter pitching in Game 5, when Luis Sojo hit the ground ball up the middle, that George said about 5 minutes before that, turn that guy off. I don't like him.
Is that right?
It's me. I was working for the Yankees.
For the Yankees.
And then about 2 minutes later, he said, what did you just say? So they said, you told us to turn him down.
Right.
So now they had to turn it back up. So that was my flip-flop with George. But he, as Joe said, I saw that other side.
But I was going to say, you said at his peak. I wonder what at his peak really meant.
At his peak was peaked.
The volatile. Volcanic.
Was volcanic and volatile. And those are two soft words to use.
But there's a covenant that any fan wants with their team owner, and that covenant is do your best to try to put a great product on the field. And There were some swings and misses, but he went out there swinging and tried to make that team as great as it could be.
We talked earlier, he dipped into that Japanese area, and he got Irabu. That failed, and then he went right back in and got Matsui. So he try again,
Absolutely.
And that has succeeded. With regards to the All-Star game, which you've done now for a long time, obviously the Yankee influence is enormous, which is, again, a tribute to Steinbrenner. You think that's one of the reasons the American League keeps winning these things?
I think the American League is a better league because the Yankees reside in the American League. Everybody, it's keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with the Yankees is, and because of that, I think every ship is lifted, and so it's been the best league. It continues to be the best league. National League has a shot though this year with the kind of starting pitching they can throw at them. But the American League's just a flat-out better league.
We thought that maybe Charlie would pitch Jimenez for 3 and Johnson for 3, maybe Halladay for 2. And
I don't know that that's off the board.
I'll tell you,
I'll tell
you one of the things you may see tonight. The American League lineup has the 3 left-handers at the bottom of including Robinson Cano. You may see Hong-Chi Kuo come in early in the game, like the 3rd inning, 4th inning, and then go back to the starters.
It's fascinating too. They could flip that lineup and just go 1 through 9, going 9 through 1. That's how deep Joe Girardi's
It's an incredible lineup. It's got to be one of the best lineups ever.
That's what I had said. All right, we'll look forward to it 8 o'clock Eastern time.
Yes.
On Fox. That's Joe Buck and Tim McCarver. And you see Vlad Guerrero and the rest of the guys that Hong-Chi Kuo and Jimenez and Halladay are going to have to face. Guys, thanks very much. Look forward to watching the All-Star game later tonight.
Whether it's the players, the front office, people working at the stadium, it didn't make a difference. He expected perfection.
Derek Jeter shares the story of the day. George Steinbrenner asked him to be captain. Joining the guys on the Baseball Tonight set. The captain on the boss, just ahead.
Signal. Airborne, beautiful, and strong. There to ensure the most powerful transmitter is you. Rule the air.
Land Rover LR4.
Rated E for everyone.
Dear PSP, my older brother keeps stealing my PSP. How do I get it back?
I guess he's not as dumb as he looks, huh?
No, but seriously, he's got my Mod Nation racers.
Uh-oh. Your brother now has the ability to customize cars, build tracks, and race with his friends.
Is there anything I can do?
If he's busy with your PSP, I'm sure his lady friend could use someone to talk to. You know what I'm saying? Step your game up. Marcus, PSP.
PlayStation.
Well, I got the course designs from a very reliable source. Otherwise, I wouldn't believe it either, trust me. Now, you've seen these rally cars in the middle of nowhere, but in an urban setting, no way. Putting this in metropolitan Los Angeles is crazy. I mean, I've taken the liberty of rendering it all out here. Let's just say I wouldn't want to be that guy.
Nobody sees X before it happens at X. X Games 16 starts July 29th on ESPN. Presented by Navy.
Our motto is, so others may live. You're putting yourself in a situation of great risk for the purposes of saving somebody else. It's gonna happen. That plane's gonna go down. That boat's gonna sink. I want to be that person that's out there. I got the best job in the Navy.
And now I'll turn it over to the Gecko.
Ah, thank you, sir. As we all know, Geico has been saving people money on RV, camper and trailer insurance, as well as motorcycle insurance. Ah, sorry. Technical difficulties.
What about this?
What's this one do? Maybe that one.
Okay, let's keep rolling. We run motorcycle insurance?
Take 15 minutes to see how much you could save on motorcycle, RV, and camper insurance.
At Exxon and Mobil, we're always working to engineer smart gasoline that helps your engine run more smoothly and leave cleaner emissions. So we started at the molecular level to create gasoline that helps remove deposits and cleans up intake valves. It's just one more way we make gasoline work harder for you. Exxon and Mobil.
I like your messy hair. I like the clothes you wear. I like the way you sing. And when you dance with me, you always make me smile. Don't know why.
We believe you're at your best when you can truly be yourself. And at Holiday Inn, you always can. Holiday Inn. Stay you.
Well, he was in so many ways the prototypical modern owner, but also a throwback to the days of the robber barons, a bullying autocrat who made bold moves, ruled by fear, and was incredibly successful in building not just an organization, but an empire. George Steinbrenner, truly one of a kind, dying today after a heart attack. He lived a full 80 years, bringing the Yankees back to its dynastic roots, bringing in the Bronx Zoo era, but also the restoration of that Yankee dynasty. More reaction now to the passing of George Steinbrenner.
I lost someone personally that I had a chance to know and was very fond of. Most people only know George through the newspaper, and how he was portrayed there sometimes wasn't accurate. But he was a very caring guy. You know, people knew him as a guy that demanded his team win at all costs, and people think he tried to win at all costs. But he was a guy that just cared. He had a passion for winning. When he took over the Yankees, that was a bad franchise. It wasn't, you know, the Yankees that we know today. He built it into this huge franchise-winning, championship-winning teams.
I said before when I wrote about him in my book, he was like a father I never had, a great father to encourage me and to be there. You know, when I got knocked down, he was still there to pick me up. And I have nothing but greatly respect for him and praises for him. I will always be grateful for him of the opportunities that he's had given me to be a part of the Yankee family. Such a first-class organization. I got a chance to experience every greatness of baseball and what baseball is like being a part of the Yankee organization.
I think players love George Steinbrenner because they knew that he was going to do everything possible to put the best team out on the field, and he was going to do anything he could to put you in a position to win. And as a player, to go into that kind of a situation, that kind of a scenario, was really all you could ask as an owner.
This is a man that I never forgot that gave me a chance to stay in the game of baseball with the organization I loved and, support my family. I think the word relentless, accountable, and I also learned that you had to have a backbone. There was connection with the fans for the most part. There were some moments because they knew that he cared. They knew that he was going to be relentless in his pursuit of putting the Yankees on top. He meshed real well with the mentality of the accountability factor in New York City.
Well, it was back in January of 1973 that George Steinbrenner led a group of businessmen to buy the Yankees for $8.7 million from CBS. Since then, the Yankees have the most World Series championships, division titles, and highest winning percentage of any baseball franchise. The Yankees, I tell people, didn't always draw 50,000 a night. His teams would fill a TV network and fill stadiums night after night at home and now across the country. We bring in ESPN's TJ Quinn right now at the new Yankee Stadium, also part of Steinbrenner's legacy. TJ, what is the reaction there in the Bronx?
Well, it's been kind of subdued, in large part because the weather's been terrible today. A big storm blew through, but there have been a number of fans who've come by to pay tribute, a few of them leaving flowers and notes outside the stadium. Inside the stadium, the big scoreboard is lit up with Steinbrenner's picture and a memory to the boss, as everybody knew him around here. Most of the conversation, though, has been about his legacy and the fact that he was a complicated man, but one who ultimately won. We spoke earlier today with former Mayor Rudolph Giuliani in his offices amid Midtown Manhattan. He was, of course, a friend of Steinbrenner's and a big Yankee fan.
His legacy is a legacy of pride, class, winning, doing what is necessary to win in terms of the kind of investments you have to make. And I remember when he first took over the Yankees, he talked a lot about how he wanted the Yankees to be deserving of the support of the fans of New York City. He wanted the Yankees to make New York City proud. George led the life of a great man, you know, with great successes, some big failures, but the balance of success against failure is overwhelming. And he's taken the sport of baseball. It's different because of George Steinbrenner.
Like a lot of the people we spoke to today, Mayor Giuliani talked about the fact that he had a complicated legacy. He was a tyrant in the office at times. He did fire people sometimes at whim and then demand to know why they weren't at their desk the next day. But what he and everyone said they're going to remember him for is the 7 World Series wins, and they thought it was fitting that when he died, they were the defending world champions and had the best record in baseball. Brian?
All right, TJ Quinn at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. Thanks, TJ. Here is the statement from the current mayor of New York City, Michael Bloomberg. He was a champion who made New York a better place and who always gave back to the city he loved. He's left an indelible legacy on the Yankees, on baseball, and our city, and he leaves us in the only way that would be appropriate as a reigning world champion.
Elsewhere, Tiger Woods looking to win a 3rd consecutive Open title at the home of golf, St. Andrews. The British Open this week. Tiger facing another major and the British press. Tom Rinaldi's at St. Andrews, one of the most storied sites in all of sports for a tournament with a number of subplots.
Tiger, you made a little bit of news there and certainly caught some people off guard by talking about a putter switch, which golfers do all the time. You haven't done it since 1999, winning 13 majors with the same putter. Why change now, and how big a change is it?
Well, Tom, I've always struggled on slow greens. That's something that you look at. Stevie and I have talked about that for years, and when I was working with Butch and I was working with Hank, I've always struggled on slow greens. And I've always struggled hitting the ball hard enough, and this putter comes off faster. It definitely rolls the ball better and faster, and I haven't had to make as big an adjustment with my speed as I've had in the past.
How do you compare the player who missed the cut at this championship a year ago with the one returning now?
Well, unfortunately, that person that missed the cut made a dumb decision going into Friday by switching 3-woods. That was just a stupid play on my part. I went to another 3-wood, which is a non-gamer 3-wood, untested 3-wood, and a 3-wood I couldn't turn over. But I hit it further, and
that's why you did it.
I got to the left or right holes and struggled.
When you think back to coming back to this place, how reflective does it make you, this course and this place?
It did early, you know, when I first played here on Sunday and probably yesterday. But today was back to normal, back to business as usual. Played with O'Meara today, you know, like my big brother, so we had a great time out there.
When you reflect, what comes back most to you?
Just the shots, where the pins were, what the winds were. We were talking about that and how it's a little bit different. This is back to the normal wind today. Haven't played that wind we had on Sunday out of that direction very often, but this is generally the prevailing wind here, so this was back to where it should be.
Finally, what do you see most recently in your game that indicates to you that you can win?
Well, I'm actually hitting more shots now. I feel comfortable maneuvering the ball both ways, changing my trajectory. That's something I was struggling with for a little bit, but I'm starting to put that together.
Best of luck this week, and we appreciate the time.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Tom Rinaldi, Tiger Woods. A Tiger hopes to keep his winning ways at St. Andrews going. He's won there twice in 2000 and 2005. In 2000, he won by an Open Championship record 8 strokes, finishing at 19 under. 5 years later, he won by 5 strokes. Brian, in case you didn't know, in both years he was 11 under going into the weekend.
He just wanted what all of us wanted, to win. And he was a pleasure to play for, and he's been a pleasure to work for.
More on the death of George Steinbrenner. Our Baseball Tonight team will be joined on the set by Yankee captain Derek Jeter. Coming up.
Keep Going is brought to you by Energizer. Keep going.
The Eyes on IndyCar Series at Toronto, Sunday at 12:30 Eastern on ABC.
Making his Mariner debut, Ken Griffey Jr. at the age of 19 and looking at a fly ball deep in the left field. Way back. Goodbye. 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 Going. Gone. See ya. Bye-bye. Adios. Sayonara. It's out of here. So long. Farewell. Junior sends a high five ball. And there it goes. Going. Goodbye. Baseball.
Our Tuesdays are crazy, so we rely on Pizza Hut's Toscani pasta.
Only on Tuesday, any family-sized Toscani pasta is just $10. That's over 3 pounds of lasagna, chicken Alfredo, or medium marinara for $10. Only on Tuesdays and only at your Pizza Hut.
State Farm agent Carrie Maddox loves to tell everyone how drivers can get discounts up to 40%. Your neighbors can tell you too. Chances are there's some of State Farm's 40 million drivers. So talk to them. Then call a State Farm agent like Carrie.
Call me.
We get a light beer?
Sure. Do you care how it tastes? Because we got Miller Lite.
Not really a taste kind of guy.
Let me guess. You're more of a lower back tattoo kind of guy.
Yeah. How'd you know? Huh. How you doing, sugar?
Man up, because if you're drinking a light beer without great Pilsner taste, you're missing the point of drinking beer. Grab a triple hops brewed Miller Lite. Taste greatness.
Gonna go get a Miller Lite.
Well, watch your back.
What's that supposed to mean?
Ladies and gentlemen, the 57th President of the United States.
AT&T, the nation's fastest 3G network. This summer, get the exclusive Samsung Stride for just $19.99, only from AT&T.
Hey, Reggie, thanks for helping out. What's in the gift bag this year?
Oh, you know, the usual thingamabobs and doodads.
All right, let's take a look. Saints keychain. I like that. Saints clock. Saints hard hat. Reggie, is there anything in here that's not Saints related?
Yeah.
A plant with dreadlocks?
Reggae bush.
Get out.
Reggae bush.
Get out. Seth Meyers hosts the ESPYs Live Wednesday at 9 p.m. on ESPN. Presented by Capital One and Castrol Edge.
The world's elite return to the birthplace of the game. The Open Championship at St. Andrews begins Thursday at 4 a.m. Eastern on ESPN.
Are you still waiting on video rentals to show up in the mail? What's up with that? Mediacom Digital Cable with Stars On Demand delivers over 6,000 movies and shows you can start anytime with your remote. What are you waiting for?
Call Mediacom now and get digital cable with free on-demand. Up to 15 channels of Stars and Encore, plus free HD channels, all for just $7.95 a month for a year. Call 877-822-2253. Call now.
I've talked a few times about getting a new car, and I never expected it to go almost 10 years now and over 244,000 miles. I couldn't have asked for more for my money.
While the value of a Toyota may last, the amazing deals and great selection won't during Toyota's National Clearance Event. Hurry in and lease the 2011 Camry with 0 down and 0 drive-off for just $259 a month. Or take home Camry with an incredible 0% APR for 60 months. Toyota, value to move you forward.
Winning's important to me. It's second. It's second to breathing. Breathing's first, winning's second.
Yankees win. The Yankees win.
And George Steinbrenner's Yankees through the years. The Yankee owner had been in declining health in recent years, and here in 2008 at the All-Star game at Yankee Stadium, last year of the old ballpark, Steinbrenner was able to make an appearance, but not do much more at that point. One thing he did do years back, name a new Yankee captain. Carl Ravitch is with him in Anaheim right now.
Coverage of the 2010 All-Star Game continues. You take a shot at the very familiar number 2, Derek Jeter, there in the batting cage, and now seen with Miguel Cabrera, and of course enjoying the day with the rest of the American League All-Stars. Kind enough to join us here on our set. This is your 12th All-Star appearance, DJ, and this is your first now going to be without the owner, George Steinbrenner. Have you thought about that? How much have you thought about it?
Well, it's been a rough morning.
Yeah.
You know, I woke up and had a bunch of messages saying, unfortunately, what happened, and I was in shock, just as everyone was.
How ill had he been? And to say that you were in shock would imply that you had never expected something like this quickly.
Well, I mean, the boss is the boss. You always assume he's going to be there, you know what I mean? So, you know, I hadn't seen him since opening day when we got a chance to give him his ring from last season. Right. And I'm going to Tampa tonight. I was planning on trying to get a hold of him the next couple of days when I was down there, but unfortunately, I'm a little late.
You know, we have seen and heard Alex Rodriguez mention little notes. Even Bobby Valentine said that the boss would send little notes. Have you been a receiver of these notes?
No question. Me and the boss had a great relationship. I've known him since I was 18 years old. You know, we were more friends than anything. I mean, I respected the fact that he was the owner, but, you know, we had a relationship where I'd see him a lot in the offseason. We have some bets on some Michigan, Ohio State football games, and he's a great man to be around.
You're easy to like. What do you think that allowed you to be his friend? What are some of the characteristics he respected in people? I
don't know. I think, you know, when I came up, like I said, since I was 18 years old, the boss preaches all we care about is winning. And, you know, the season's a failure unless you win. And that's the same way I felt about it.
I know you said that recently when this whole Cliff Lee thing was going on, what has allowed you 4 guys to stay together? And you said, we never wanted to be traded.
And we always wanted to be here. And we definitely owe a lot to the boss for keeping us here. You know, he was a stickler for, if you win, we'll keep you together. And if not, we got to make some changes. So we were fortunate to win a lot early on, and he gave us the opportunity to play with the Yankees our entire careers.
Hey, Derek, we're missing an icon in American sports. His personality was bigger than life. How has it impacted you and your career, your life?
Well, I think, you know, sort of like you say, everyone sees him as being this real vocal owner. And, you know, I got an opportunity to get to know him as a person. You get to know him as a person, what he did in the community, not only in New York, but Tampa, all around the world. He did a lot of things he never got credit for and didn't want credit for. I wanted to ask you about
that, the contrast.
And, you know, those are the things that I'll remember the most.
Yeah, I wanted to say that so many people today, they talk about contrasts and the good and the bad. And everybody says but give me something where he was tough and then something that he did that no one knows about.
Tough. Everyone knows how tough he was. You know, he'd get on, you know as well as anyone. He'll get on his players. You know, everyone's been the recipient of that. But you understood where it came from. You know, he wanted to win, and that's the only thing. He expected perfection. And the good is, you know, the way he took care of players, even if they played for a week with the Yankee organization, he'd bring them back. Old Timers Day was big with the Yankee organization. Bringing back the greats to spring training. You know, he always looked after his former players.
Famous for the credit card commercials and whatnot. How long did it take you to be yourself around him? Or was it instant, where you could joke with him and you knew what you could kind of get away with?
It was pretty instant. You know, we won when I was young.
That helped.
So, yeah, it helps a lot. You can joke around with him a lot when you win.
Right.
But he always went out of his way to be very kind to me from the first day I signed with the organization, and you know, the friendship grew from there.
You know, that level of accountability, whether it be yourself or Rodriguez, Buck Showalter tells stories, is that he'll let you know what he expects from you. When you didn't win, how soon would you hear from him, and what would he say?
Pretty much the first time I'd see him after that. You know, he'd come in and he'd be disappointed. He'd look you up and down.
You'd know.
You know. He didn't have to say too much, just the way he looked at you. But you appreciated that. I would never want to play for an owner or ownership that didn't expect to win.
Bob Sheppard, of course, recently passed away. And I know that you're going to hear his voice tonight when your name is announced. And given the Steinbrenner passing, how are you going to deal with all these emotions?
It's been a rough few days for the Yankee organization. You know, Bob Sheppard, I had the idea about 4 or 5 years ago. He had missed a couple games and it just didn't sound right when he wasn't there. So I had him tape his voice, and I said every time I come to the plate, for as long as I'm playing, I want to hear his voice. And, you know, it's great that we're going to honor him tonight with the same thing.
I have one more thing. You made 12 All-Star games. Is there motivation to always come back here?
No question. Anybody that tells you that they don't look forward to an all-star game is lying to you.
Yeah.
Because it is an honor, and you appreciate it. You don't know when you're going to have that opportunity again. I've had fun at every one I've been to, and hopefully we can have fun tonight.
You always wanted to be a Yankee forever. Was part of that because of who owned the team, or is it because of the uniform you wear? And moving forward, has it changed at all?
I think they go hand in hand. You know, you talk about the Yankee organization. The boss's name comes up there right with the players. And, you know, this is the organization I've always wanted to play for, and nothing has changed.
You think that building reminds you of him every time you walk into it?
Yeah, we wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the boss. You know, what he's been able to do. He wanted to build that stadium for the fans, and, you know, it's second to none.
Last thing, any way you think they should honor George Steinbrenner, because he made a major impact on our society?
Yeah, maybe they put everybody in a Yankee uniform tonight. That'd be nice, right?
I'm sure there'll be a lot of Yankee fans, a lot of Steinbrenner fans, and I can't imagine what you're going to be thinking about when you hear that announcement and you walk into that box. Good luck with those emotions.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being with us.
No problem.
Derek Jeter. Hi, so that's Jeter. You see the uniforms, and it is time for the National League now to get onto the field. Boys will be boys. You'll change, you'll throw that picture uniform on, and it is time to snap the National League.
All right, Ravi, see you in a few. For more on George Steinbrenner, let's welcome in Kim Ang, Dodgers Vice President and Assistant GM. Kim, prior to that job, you were VP and Assistant GM of the Yankees. You were hired by the Yankees at the age of 29. At the time, you were the youngest Assistant GM in Major League Baseball. What were your impressions when you met George Steinbrenner?
You know, listen, everybody knows George is a tough guy, and he actually, I will say this, he had a lot of guts to go out and hire me. You know, obviously Brian Cashman recommended me and really wanted me on board, but, you know, George was about going against the grain and really being a pioneer in a lot of ways for the game. So I give him all the credit in the world. He's obviously done a lot of things in the game. But he was amazing. He really was. He demanded excellence every day. And he was not, you know, somebody who wasn't going to be down in the trenches with you working as hard as you were. So he was a great example for us as well.
You said it took a lot of guts for him to hire you at that age. What do you think he saw in you?
Well, I think he had heard, you know, about me. I think, you know, my reputation was pretty good at the time, and I think he had talked to Jerry Reinsdorf possibly, or knew that Jerry had hired me. So I think, you know, having heard some of the things, heard some of the stories, my reputation, etc., I think he was definitely willing to step out on that ledge and give somebody, you know, who you think earned the opportunity, the actual opportunity itself.
Okay, getting hired is one thing, but now you're in. Now you have to go to work for the man. What's it like being in an organization led by George Steinbrenner?
Well, I think everybody across the board will tell you that he's a tough guy. But, you know, that's the thing that you understand about him is that every day he came to the park or he came to the office, and that was his number one goal for the day, was to win. And I think when you look at it in that way, there were a lot of things that he did that were probably unorthodox, or maybe ways that he treated people that you'd want him to treat people a little bit better. But when you looked at it, it was just that drive that made him behave the way he did. And I think once you pulled back some of the layers, I think everyone appreciated that. And especially the years that I was there, 98 through 01, I mean, we were winning. Gosh, there were months that we were 22-5, 23-5, and it just seemed like you were winning every day. But you knew that was a lot of that was because he was behind us, pushing us and driving us to be the best that we could.
What did you learn from George Steinbrenner that you took with you to Los Angeles?
I think that relentlessness, and that, I mean, I think a lot of people have it in them, but I'm not sure they necessarily know how to bring it out, and that it's okay to show that every day. But George certainly was out there up front and center, letting everybody know that this is what was expected of them. A lot of times, you feel like you have to take it easy and you have to do it within certain confines. He wasn't like that. It was, whatever it took at all costs, this was the ultimate goal. One of the things I think that people don't necessarily realize about George was that it was about winning, but it was about winning for the fans of New York. I think he was just incredibly dedicated to them. And, you know, when we played the Mets, that was one of the biggest series of the year, you know, besides postseason, and maybe actually even including division and LCS. But, I mean, seriously, I mean, the Mets were a big series for us because he was really trying to, you know, instill that in the fans of New York, that we were the best and that we were doing this all for them. So.
Hired at the age of 29, the youngest assistant general manager of Major League Baseball, hired by the Yankees. Kim Ang, Dodgers VP and assistant GM, thank you for joining us and sharing your memories here on SportsCenter.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
And more today from the world of baseball. Red Sox principal owner John Henry saying, quote, "I had the privilege to watch George as he built a system that ensured his beloved Yankees would have a strong foundation for sustained excellence. And then we fiercely competed in the American League." George Steinbrenner forever changed baseball, and hopefully someday we will see him honored in baseball's Hall of Fame as one of the great figures in the history of sports.
I can't fire people. It's not in my nature.
More on George Steinbrenner, how he could poke fun at himself and his own reputation, and how Joe Torre's reputation changed under his stewardship.
Ground control. We have a problem. Switching to lithium power.
I feel better already.
Energizer Ultimate Lithium, the world's longest lasting AA battery and high-tech devices, just got better. Energizer, keep going.
Denny's has 3 delicious new skillets starting at just $3.99. You hear that sizzling? It's the money you just saved burning a hole in your pocket. Just kidding, it's the new skillets.
Well, I got the course designs from a very reliable source. Otherwise, I wouldn't believe it either, trust me. Now, you've seen these rally cars in the middle of nowhere, but in an urban setting, no way. Putting this in metropolitan Los Angeles is crazy. I mean, I've taken the liberty of rendering it all out here. I should say I wouldn't want to be that guy.
Nobody sees X before it happens at X. X Games 16 starts July 29th on ESPN. Presented by Ford.
Does this get good gas mileage?
Yeah. It's a pretty big deal.
Could switching to Geico really save you 15% or more on car insurance? Does a former drill sergeant make a terrible therapist?
And that's why yellow makes me sad, I think.
That's interesting. You know what makes me sad?
You do! Maybe we should chug on over to Mamby-Pamby land, where maybe we can find some self-confidence for you, you jackwagon!
Tissue? Cry, baby.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Light beer, please.
Sure. Do you care how it tastes?
Nah, I don't care how it tastes.
Okay, well, when you start caring, put down your purse and I'll give you a Miller Lite.
It's a carry-all.
No, it's not.
Man up, because if you're drinking a light beer without great Pilsner taste, you're missing the point of drinking beer. Grab a triple hops brewed Miller Lite. Taste greatness.
I'm gonna get a Miller Lite.
I'll watch your purse.
It's a carry-all.
Box 1457B was filled with partially cooked frozen chicken strips in a factory 2 months ago. It's been sitting here for the last 12 days. Odds are it'll be here 17 more.
Here's an idea. We make them fresh, you eat them fresh. Introducing freshly prepared hand-breaded chicken tenders at Hardee's.
Want to hear the latest? iWireless now has Android smartphones with thousands of cool apps at your fingertips. So, whether you want to search the night sky, check movies and showtimes, stay connected with friends, scan and compare products, or find your way, iWireless has an Android device for you at the best prices around. Plus, Save every month with iWireless Complete plans, all with a risk-free guarantee. Android from iWireless. Why pay more? Seriously, why pay more?
George Steinbrenner, 1930, 2010, died this morning. Massive heart attack in Florida. He was 80 years old. We've been talking about him throughout the duration of the day here on SportsCenter. And you know, his ownership style, it changed the business of sports. He was not afraid to spend money for the best players, and he did it with flair, and he did it with personality.
A larger-than-life figure, Steinbrenner inspiring a recurring character on the TV series Seinfeld. It was himself, sort of him. You only saw him from behind and waving arms back and forth. It did help to keep the presence of Steinbrenner alive in the then current culture. This statement coming today from Jerry Seinfeld himself, noted Met fan, but of course, again, recurring comedy would come from the George Steinbrenner character, and Seinfeld saying, who else could be a memorable character on a television show without actually appearing on the show? You felt George even though he wasn't there. That's how huge a force of personality he was. Marty Appel is a former Yankee PR man and baseball author. He wrote many Yankee-related books. He knew what Steinbrenner thought of the parody.
Probably was wise to just not comment on it and let it go, or it would have backfired on him. I think there were some times he probably laughed and probably sometimes he was not amused, but I think he was pretty smart not to comment. There were times it rang very true, and yeah, there were times in his office when it would almost be as it was portrayed on the show.
That's Marty Appel, and this from Jason Alexander, the actor who played George Costanza on Seinfeld. Larry David was the voice, by the way, of George Steinbrenner, the manic figure. And Alexander said, I met the real George Steinbrenner on only one occasion when he actually came and played himself on an episode of Seinfeld. He seemed to really enjoy himself. I did not get to know him, but the fact that he allowed himself to be and his beloved team to be satirized on our show is an indication to me of his true character. He was certainly a legend, and I am pleased to have been associated with him, even if only in fiction. Well put. My sympathies to his family, friends, and fans. Let's go back to Anaheim right now. Former Yankee manager, now Dodger manager, Joe Torre. Carl Ravitch.
Hi, guys. Thank you very much. And you take a look at the National League All-Stars, and a couple of Mr. Torre's players are here on the field tonight. Andre Ethier, Rafael Furcal, and as we heard earlier from Tim McCarver, perhaps Han-Chi Kuo plays a little bit more of a significant role early in this game. But the big story of the day is the passing of the former Yankee owner George Steinbrenner at 80 years of age. Interesting, we just had the comment from Jerry Seinfeld and Jason Alexander, and we are now joined by Joe Torre, who has moved towards Hollywood, managing the Dodgers. How much of the Hollywood flavor did Mr. Steinbrenner and yourself create in New York?
Well, you know, when I watched Seinfeld, and certainly that was all done before I took over the Yankees, it was pretty comical because there are a lot of similarities to certain meetings we would have on a regular basis, Carl.
You know, Joe, he took, I guess, a chance on you. You were not managing, and somehow he identified you and said, this is the guy that's going to lead this team. How did that make you feel?
Well, it made me feel grateful. You know, I know I was on a list, and, you know, other managers who were on that list, Tony La Russa, I think, was one, and Davey Johnson, they had maybe already committed to other jobs. But George did call me and say, you're my man, and, you know, I was grateful to get the opportunity. I know there were comments out there about he went back and talked to Buck Showalter. But again, you know, when you work for George Steinbrenner, you know that there aren't necessarily many rules that you have to know about, and he's going to do whatever he can to try to help a ball club win. And I was just happened to be the right guy in the right place, and had success early on. I inherited a pretty good ball club in '96.
World Series in '96, '98, '99. 2000. What were the things about your relationship with George and George's with you that allowed this all to work?
Well, I think there was mutual respect there. I certainly went into this job with my eyes wide open, knowing what George's reputation was. And I think the thing that helped me, Carl, more than anything was the fact that I knew he was the boss and I wasn't going to fight that. You know, again, he was a lot younger when he and Billy used to go around and around, but by the time I took over in '96, I think George was, a little bit older, and the fact that we had some success early, I think, made the relationship a lot easier to create.
And now you're in Los Angeles, and of course, he has passed away. And so many of the comments, Joe, and if you've seen some of the coverage, I'm sure you can relate to it, kind of come with a contradiction. There's a blessing or a beauty, and then there's sort of the other side. And I don't want to say that it's a curse, but clearly you've been involved with both sides of George Steinbrenner. And now as he has passed on, what will your long-term memories be of him?
Well, I think he was a warm man. I think he was a driven man. I think we all took a piece of that from George, the fact that even though you win once, it's not enough. But obviously he had a father figure growing up that was driven, and, I'm not sure this man really had a great deal of time for his family like we all do, because this Yankee team was his number one love. And, of course, horse racing was another love of his. But it was 12 months a year, 24/7 for him. And it was the only thing that made him smile was the fact that you put a World Series ring on. And we always have to respect that, even though I don't think any of us would want to change places with him.
No, and I know that you have such a relationship with Derek Jeter, and with the passing of Bob Sheppard, and I know we had a comment from you on Sunday when we were in Dodger Stadium, but with the fact that Sheppard's going to announce Jeter's name tonight, and now you add the owner and the boss has passed away, and knowing Derek the way you do, what kind of emotional reaction do you think he's had to deal with and will deal with when he steps into that batter's box?
Well, Derek has a good way of being able to pay attention what he needs to do at the time he needs to do it. But I guarantee you, there's a loss in there for Derek, both for Bob Sheppard and George Steinbrenner, because Derek has always wanted to be a Yankee, and George Steinbrenner made that possible for him.
Hey, Joe, I know that you owe some of your success to George, and it's certainly a relationship that those of us who have covered this game for nearly 20 years know is very significant to the game, and we certainly appreciate your thoughts here. And thanks for joining us.
Well, there's no question. He made the biggest part of my baseball career possible, so thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Joe Torre, the Yankee manager, now current Dodger manager, who had won 4 World Series and took the Yankees to 2 others in 2001 and 2003. When we come back, we'll look at the National League and the All-Star teams, and we'll make some picks for tonight's All-Star game. Dominated the last 13 years by the team wearing the other uniform, not the national, but the American.
All right, Carl, thank you so much, and much more coverage on the death of George Steinbrenner on ESPNNewYork.com, including Basketball Hall of Famer Bob Knight, our own Bob Knight, on the loss of his friend, former Yankee owner George Steinbrenner.
I can't fire people. It's not in my nature.
Oh, we'd heard about Steinbrenner on Seinfeld. Some funny comments there from Joe Torre regarding that. Now, Steinbrenner himself in a self-parody on Saturday Night Live, coming up next.
I believe that we just drove across the street to save 2 cents.
I don't need to hear your 2 cents about all the things I do to save 2 cents.
You see that a lot these days. People going out of their way to save money when they could just call State Farm. The fact is, State Farm offers discounts of up to 40%.
Hey, pick me up at Charleston Chew.
Okay, cannot hear you. It's no wonder they're bigger than Geico and Progressive combined. So talk to your neighbors, then call an agent at 1-800-STATE-FARM.
What?
I'm gonna enjoy this.
They may not always get along.
And after all that, I still look good.
But on July 30th...
Whoa! Don't be scared. I'll hold you, Paul. Oh, boy.
When we need their help...
We have to save the humans.
They're all for one.
Look out! What'd you do that for? Not sure.
And one for all.
I preferred it when we all hated each other.
Cats and Dogs, The Revenge of Kitty Galore. Unleashed in 3D. Rated PG.
I have a BBM group for my car club, the Dead Sleds. We see a cool car, we'll send a BBM. It says, hey, come check this car out.
BBM feels like it's faster. You can set up these groups and everyone can have input. We're going to be at the end of the second cove. And you can even send pictures along the way of, hey, here's where we are. Killer, let's go.
I hear that. What?
Did you hear that?
What? Brazil is calling you. Celebrate life here.
Breathtaking. Ladies, hello. It's me again, your TV. I cut your cable to show you a no-brainer, DirecTV. With DirecTV, you can record a show in this room, so the kids can watch it in this room. Or this room. Or perhaps this room. Any room. I'm talking options, ladies. You love them, DirecTV has them. So give them a call. DirecTV. It'll change your life.
Today's top story, George Steinbrenner, Yankees owner for more than 37 seasons, died today in Florida after a heart attack. He was 80 years old. He rebuilt the Yankees into a sports empire, was not afraid to spend money, known for his feuds, including his firings of manager Billy Martin, his clash with Yankees great Yogi Berra. Remembered from all over the sports world, fellow horseman Nick Zito up first.
He had a really good side about him, and honestly, you know, he loved his horses and loved the people around him, and he had a different, I think he had a different, you know, perspective when it comes to racehorses. He knew it was the sport of kings, and he loved horses as a young guy, and we had a lot of great conversations, but it was interesting. I have, you know, it's a sad day for me and sad day for everybody, but I certainly enjoyed my time with George, and you know, for a kid growing up in New York, working for George Steinbrenner, and then in 1995, you know, getting to sit in his box when the Yankees played the Mariners, and then getting to meet a fellow by the name of Joe DiMaggio was very special for me. So I have a lot of fond memories with Mr. Steinbrenner and the family.
Lifetime involves some good things and some bad things, some things you're proud of and some things you're not so proud of. George made some very bad mistakes. I think he regretted them, and in a way he was he liked being kind of a bully. On the other hand, he was capable of, as I say, of some very sensitive acts. So I think there was the public George Steinbrenner, and we all saw that. It wasn't a pretty story always, but I think there was a private George Steinbrenner, and that's the harder part to get a hold of now when you talk about a full life.
George Steinbrenner was one of a kind, and you just mentioned football. That job really was his first love, more than anything in the world. He wanted to be a football coach. He stayed very, very close to the Ohio State Buckeyes, and he had trouble one year getting a good room for the Michigan-Ohio State game in Columbus. So guess what Boss George did? The next year, he went out and built a hotel, and he kept the penthouse for himself so he could go up and watch his beloved Buckeyes. I was extremely fond of him, and through the years, you could see that through and through he was a football man, and he brought some of that to baseball, and he certainly was a great winner, let me tell you that. I doubt that the Yankees would have accomplished, in fact, I know they wouldn't have. They would not have accomplished what they did had not George moved in and bought them, because CBS had owned them, as you said, until 1973, I think it was, and really that network let it run down. I think at one time the ownership of CBS thought it was great to go to cocktail parties and talk about the Yankees, but they didn't realize how that can turn against you if you don't have a winning team. And with George, winning came before everything, and he fit right in with the New York culture as far as I was concerned.
And this statement from former Yankee and current Cubs manager Lou Piniella. In a statement, Sweet Lou, part of the Yankees in the Bronx Zoo era from 1974 to 1984. He said, George was like a father figure to me. He treated me well, he treated me fair, and he gave me a wonderful opportunity to play and manage the game we all love. George was very special to me, and I loved him. We heard earlier how the George Steinbrenner character was a big part of the Seinfeld show, and we heard Joe Torre said some of those meetings actually were kind of like that, where you never actually saw George Steinbrenner, but he also could poke fun at himself.
He could. In fact, he hosted a memorable Saturday Night Live skit in 1990, which parodied his affinity for, I want to say, letting people go.
Yeah,
That's good stuff.
Yeah, that's how it worked before Joe Torre was hired in New York. It's just a revolving door with managers. 2 hours of SportsCenter still on the way. Stay with us.
He's more than just an owner to me. You know, he's a friend of mine, and he will be deeply missed.
This is SportsCenter.
The death of George Steinbrenner. We'll hear from the Yankees, Derek Jeter, Joe Torre, Andy Pettitte, and we'll even hear from Jerry Seinfeld. Plus, PTI debates the boss's legacy. The battle for World Series home field advantage. It's All-Star night inside the AL and NL locker rooms. Who wins and why tonight? Tiger talks. Don't miss how he handled the tough questions and why he's made a major change before the British Open. And Hall of Famer Lawrence Taylor arraigned today inside the courtroom for all the drama. SportsCenter continues right now.
SportsCenter continues. Back alongside Brian Kinney, I'm Jay Harris. Tonight we celebrate the best players in baseball and a true baseball man. Longtime Yankees owner George Steinbrenner died this morning after a heart attack. He was 80 years old.
For many years, he was seen as part of what was wrong with modern sports, but he brought the Yankees back to dominance, rebuilding an empire, and he dies fittingly as his team reigns as world champions once again. We've been getting reaction here on SportsCenter for the past 2 hours as we've been on here with you. We have 2 more hours coming up. We've heard again, it was very poignant to hear from Lou Piniella, who was there through the early years with George Steinbrenner, the rough George Steinbrenner. We heard from Derek Jeter, Andy Pettitte, but also some of the newer Yankees right now in Anaheim for the All-Star game. Let's hear now from Robinson Cano and Nick Swisher.
That's really sad, and you know, all fans, teams, players, I would say everyone will miss him, and you know, I say my condolence to his family.
I don't know, man. I think today's such a sad day for baseball. Lost a great man, and just to be able to be out here to represent Mr. Steinbrenner in the game today, I think it's an honor. I think representing the pinstripes, people in New York, but then again, Mr. Steinbrenner was such a great man. I mean, I think you can hold him up there with all the greats in Yankee history. He's done so much for the game, so much for the team. The Yankees wouldn't be what they are today if it wasn't for him.
And continuing talking about George Steinbrenner, now let's welcome in real estate magnate Donald Trump to the program. Donald, welcome. Jay Harris here on SportsCenter. Good to have you
Hello,
here.
Jay.
Your initial thoughts when you heard that George Steinbrenner had passed away?
Well, he's been a friend of mine for many years. He was an amazing guy. He was a great businessman and just an amazingly loyal guy. And you could see that so much with some of the players he took on. You know, after their careers, they were having trouble. He'd bring them into the Yankee fold. George was a loyal guy and a great guy.
You guys have been friends for a long time. What attracted you two to each other?
I don't know. He came in from Cleveland. I was a young guy, and he was a little bit older, but we somehow just had a chemistry together. You know, you develop that chemistry sometimes, rarely, but sometimes. And for many years, we've just been friends. We used to sit at the World Series together. There was nobody that loved winning more than George. I would be sitting with him, and I'll tell you, when he won, there was nobody ever happier than him. And when he lost, which wasn't too often, there was nobody sadder, I can tell you that.
What is one of your George Steinbrenner memories that, I don't know, may have leapt to mind today that you can share with us?
Well, I have many, but, you know, the biggest are the victories that we really sort of had together because we were close. But one of the good things was when I originally did The Apprentice, which became this big success, but nobody wanted to go on except George. George said, Donald, if you need me, I'm on. This was before it aired. And, you know, other guys with the big names, they said, well, Donald, could I see how it does first? Because most shows don't do well. And George went on, and I will tell you, he sat with these 16 geniuses that I brought up to Yankee Stadium, by the way, during the World Series. And he was going to give me 15 minutes. He gave them an hour and a half. And those kids will never forget his lecture on winning. He talked about winning for an hour and a half during the World Series. I mean, that week of the World Series. And they'll just never forget it, and I never forgot it. And then the show went on, and it became a success. And he might have helped make it that way. I mean, the guy was just a winner.
What made him want to go on? I mean, you guys are friends, and we've seen him on the Saturday Night Live, and we know he had the personality, we had the flair. What inside him do you think made him want to do that?
Well, I think it was his loyalty for his friend, which is me. You know, I told him, hey, listen, I'm doing this crazy thing. I can't imagine doing it, but I'm doing it at the request of NBC. And if you don't mind, do you mind doing this? And he said, absolutely, if you want me to do it. I said, you know, you have the World Series going on. He said, I don't care. Come on over here. Be over here right away with the group. And it was just a fascinating hour and a half. And even I sat there, I listened to him. And it was an absolutely fascinating period of time. I will tell you, the kids, really smart, very young, they will never forget it.
From where you sat so close to him, how would you describe his impact on baseball and the sports world?
Well, I would think that there's never really been anything like George. He did an amazing job. You know, I told somebody before, he really believed in the star system, but maybe even more than that, he understood talent. You know, there are some stars, and they don't have the talent that they're supposed to have, and we see that all the time. He understood talent, and he understood the star system, and he loved it. And, you know, while he spent money, he ultimately ended up being right because he created the most valuable franchise in United States sports. So he really had it right. He was a great guy, a warm guy, and he had a tremendous heart.
You guys would get together, hang out. Who picked up the tab, Donald? I know.
Well, I'd always like to have him pick up. By the way, he was very generous. I mean, he was not a guy that wouldn't pick up the tab. We would fight over the tab, but this was not. We have plenty of guys that don't like picking up tabs. You know that. He was not one that would shy away from picking it up. But he was a wonderful guy. He was a really wonderful friend and a very loyal friend.
Oh, let me ask you this, since both of you have had some experience at this. Who fires better? Who fired better, you or George Steinbrenner?
Well, that's a question that I have not been asked, and I haven't even thought of it. But maybe somewhere down the line, deep down the line, I got the idea from George. I watched him very early on, and he was pretty good at that. But, you know, he had his reasons, and ultimately he turned out to be right.
Oh, Donald Trump, you're friends with George Steinbrenner for years. We appreciate you sharing your memories and joining us here on SportsCenter, Donald. Thank you.
Great honor.
There are those similarities.
Yeah, there are.
Fired when you look back now at the days of George Steinbrenner, especially in the 1970s. Again, bought the Yankees with a group, amid that group in 1973 from CBS for $8.7 million. In his time, the Yankees have the highest win percentage in most World Series championships as well. Let's go back out to Anaheim. Again, one of the things George Steinbrenner did was name a new Yankee captain. There haven't been many through the decades. One, though, is Derek Jeter. He's with our own Carl Ravitch in Anaheim.
Coverage of the 2010 All-Star Game continues. You take a shot at the very familiar number 2, Derek Jeter, there in the batting cage, and now seen with Miguel Cabrera, and of course enjoying the day with the rest of the American League All-Stars. Kind enough to join us here on our set. This is your 12th All-Star appearance, DJ, and this is your first now going to be without the owner, George Steinbrenner. Have you thought about that? And how much have you thought about it?
Well, it's been a rough morning.
Yeah.
You know, I woke up and had a bunch of messages saying, unfortunately, what happened, and I was in shock, just as everyone was.
How ill had he been? And to say that you were in shock would imply that you had never expected something like this quickly.
Well, I mean, the boss is the boss. You always assume he's going to be there, you know what I mean? So, you know, I hadn't seen him since opening day when we got a chance to give him his ring from last season. Right. And I'm going to Tampa tonight. I was planning on trying to get a hold of him the next couple of days when I was down there, but unfortunately I'm a little late.
You know, we have seen and heard Alex Rodriguez mention little notes. Even Bobby Valentine said that the boss would send little notes. Have you been a receiver of these notes?
No question. Me and the boss had a great relationship. I've known him since I was 18 years old. You know, we were more friends than anything. I mean, I respected the fact that he was the owner, but, you know, we had a relationship where I'd see him a lot in the offseason. We have some bets on some Michigan, Ohio State football games, and he's a great man to be around.
You're easy to like. What do you think that allowed you to be his friend? What are some of the characteristics he respected in people?
I don't know. I think, when I came up, like I said, since I was 18 years old, the boss preaches all we care about is winning. And, the season's a failure unless you win. And that's the same way I felt about it.
I know you said that recently when this whole Cliff Lee thing was going on, what has allowed you 4 guys to stay together? And you said, we never wanted to be traded.
And we always wanted to be here. And we definitely owe a lot to the boss for keeping us here. He was a stickler for, if you win, we'll keep you together. And if not, we got to make some changes. So we were fortunate to win a lot early on, and he gave us the opportunity to play with the Yankees our entire careers.
Hey, Derek, we're missing an icon in American sports. His personality was bigger than life. How has it impacted you and your career, your life?
Well, I think, sort of like you say, everyone sees him as being this real vocal owner. And, I got an opportunity to get to know him as a person. You get to know him as a person, what he did in the community, not only in New York, but Tampa, all around the world. He did a lot of things he never got credit for and didn't want credit for.
I wanted to ask you about that, the contrast.
And, those are the things that I'll remember the most.
Yeah, I wanted to say that so many people today, they talk about contrasts and the good and the bad. And everybody says but give me something where he was tough and then something that he did that no one knows about.
Tough. Everyone knows how tough he was. He'd get on, as well as anyone. He'll get on his players. Everyone's been the recipient of that. But you understood where it came from. He wanted to win, and that's the only thing he expected, perfection. And the good is, the way he took care of players, even if they played for a week with the Yankee organization, he'd bring them back. Old Timers Day was big with the Yankee organization. Bringing back the greats to spring training. He always looked after his former players.
Famous for the credit card commercials and whatnot. How long did it take you to be yourself around him? Or was it instant, where you could joke with him and you knew what you could kind of get away with?
It was pretty instant. We won when I was young.
That helped.
So, yeah, it helps a lot. You can joke around with him a lot when you win.
Right.
But he always went out of his way to be very kind to me from the first day I signed with the organization, and the friendship grew from there.
That level of accountability, whether it be yourself or Rodriguez, Buck Showalter tells stories, is that he'll let you know what he expects from you. When you didn't win, how soon would you hear from him, and what would he say?
Pretty much the first time I'd see him after that. He'd come in and he'd be disappointed. He'd look you up and down.
You'd know.
You'd know. He didn't have to say too much. Just the way he looked at you. But you appreciated that. I would never want to play for an owner or ownership that didn't expect to win.
Bob Sheppard, of course, recently passed away. And I know that you're going to hear his voice tonight when your name is announced. And given the Steinbrenner passing, how are you going to deal with all these emotions?
It's been a rough few days for the Yankee organization. Bob Sheppard, I had the idea about 4 or 5 years ago. He had missed a couple games and it just didn't sound right when he wasn't there. So I had him tape his voice, and I said every time I come to the plate, for as long as I'm playing, I want to hear his voice. And, it's great that we're going to honor him tonight with the same thing.
I have one more thing. You made 12 All-Star games. Is there motivation to always come back here?
No question. Anybody that tells you that they don't look forward to an All-Star game is lying to you.
Yeah.
Because it is an honor, and you appreciate it. You don't know when you're going to have that opportunity again. I've had fun at every one I've been to, and hopefully we can have fun tonight.
You always wanted to be a Yankee forever. Was part of that because of who owned the team, or is it because of the uniform you're wearing? Moving forward, has it changed at all?
I think they go hand in hand. You talk about the Yankee organization, the boss's name comes up there right with the players. And, this is the organization I've always wanted to play for, and nothing has changed.
You think that building reminds you of him every time you walk into it?
Yeah, we wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the boss. What he's been able to do. He wanted to build that stadium for the fans, and, it's second to none.
Last thing, any way you think they should honor George Steinbrenner, because he made a major impact on our society?
Yeah, maybe they put everybody in a Yankee uniform tonight. That'd be nice, right?
I'm sure there'll be a lot of Yankee fans, a lot of Steinbrenner fans, and I can't imagine what you're going to be thinking about when you hear that announcement and you walk into that box. Good luck with those emotions.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being with us.
No problem.
Derek Jeter. Hi, so that's Jeter. You see the uniforms, and it is time for the National League now to get onto the field. Boys will be boys. You'll change, you'll throw that picture uniform on, and it is time to snap the National League.
And a swing at a high fly ball. Jackson is on the run, still going. He makes the catch. Oh, Jackson! Austin Jackson in left center field. A sparkling play.
And before you get ready for the All-Star game in Anaheim, we have a SportsCenter treat for you. Get ready for the top 10 plays of the first half of the baseball season.
Oh, Jackson!
The Eyes on IndyCar Series at Toronto, Sunday at 12:30 Eastern on ABC.
Our Tuesdays are crazy, so we rely on Pizza Hut's Tuscany pasta.
Only on Tuesday, any family-sized Tuscany pasta is just $10. That's over 3 pounds of lasagna, chicken Alfredo, or medium marinara for $10. Only on Tuesdays and only at your Pizza Hut.
I am so sorry. Is he bothering you?
Is he yours?
Yeah, he's my first mate.
Where did you get them?
I rescued them from a shelter.
Oh, you did that?
Get the lab.
Guys never change. Neither do we. Jim Beam, the bourbon since 1795.
State Farm agent Carrie Maddox
loves to tell everyone how drivers can get discounts up to 40%.
Your
neighbors can tell you too. They're probably some of State Farm's 40 million drivers. So talk to them. Then call a State Farm agent like me.
Call her.
I'm totally lost, man.
Yeah, we're all lost, man.
No, man, lost in these links.
It's Bing, man.
Bing?
Whoa.
Far out.
Bing found us, man.
Turn left.
How does Bing know where we are, man? Just does, man. Just does.
Introducing Bing Mobile. Now the decision engine from Microsoft goes wherever you go.
Well, before we came to Lowe's, we tried another paint to cover our striped living room walls. We were told it would cover easily.
Slight exaggeration.
Huge exaggeration. Thankfully, Samantha here told us about high-def color.
I just told them about our new high-def signature color from Valspar. The built-in primer gives you excellent coverage, plus it's our fastest, most durable paint with superior color accuracy. I'm guessing you don't miss the stripes?
We don't miss the stripes at all.
Experience. Lowe's. Let's build something together.
Hey, Reggie, thanks for helping out. What's in the gift bag this year?
Oh, you know, the usual thingamabobs and doodads.
All right, let's take a look. Saints keychain. I like that. Saints clock. Saints hard hat. Reggie, is there anything in here that's not Saints related?
Yeah.
A plant with dreadlocks?
Reggae bush.
Get out.
Reggae bush.
Get out.
Seth Meyers hosts the ESPYs Live Wednesday at 9 p.m. on ESPN. Presented by Capital One and Castrol Edge.
ESPN 3D is here. Watch over 80 live sporting events in amazing 3D. Contact your video provider or visit ESPN.com/3D.
Save big money during the Menards Anniversary Sale. DAP Beats to Nail adhesives are all on sale. It can be used on foam, decking, paneling, and more. For heavy-duty construction and repair projects, choose heavy-duty Instant Grab, just $1.98 a tube. Brighten your home with Thomas Lighting. A 6-inch all-in-one recessed housing that is air-sealed to reduce energy loss is $5.95. This air-sealed 6-inch housing is great for remodeling projects, $7.97. Don't miss Menards' 50th Anniversary Sale, going on now.
Save big money at Menards.
Hi, I'm Dr. Borisov, eye LASIK surgeon at the Verdi Eye Clinic. I invite you to come in to see if you qualify for the all-laser LASIK procedure at the Quad City's only fixed-site eye LASIK center.
Their equipment is stationary. It's not mobile. It stays right here in-house, and that meant a lot to me. It's not going from facility to facility, and it's also bladeless.
Come and learn why eye LASIK is exclusively approved by NASA for its pilots and why it is the right procedure for you.
Back on SportsCenter, Jay Harris, Brian Kinney, and the Miami Heat about to land another player. Zydrunas Ilgauskas following LeBron James to South Beach. Through his agent, the veteran center expects to sign a 2-year contract later this week, and Ilgauskas has told Cleveland owner Dan Gilbert and Cavs GM Chris Grant of his decision. No issues there. Miami building a nice supporting cast around the Big Three thus far, re-signing Udonis Haslem, about to sign Big Z, bolstering the front court. Agreeing to terms with Mike Miller. Got Mario Chalmers returning for his 3rd season, also with the 3 rookies. They drafted in the 2nd round, all at least 6'7". And oh, by the way, as for the Cavaliers, the team says thousands of fans have offered to help pay owner Dan Gilbert's $100,000 fine for his LeBron comments. Gilbert saying thank you, but no thank you. He's going to pay for it. He says if you want to give some cash, just give it to charity. Back now at baseball's best of the best, battling for World Series home field advantage. More from the All-Star game. Who's going to win it? Carl Ravage anchors our coverage from Anaheim.
Moving towards the 2010 All-Star game. Will the National League finally turn the tables? It's been almost 15 years since they've gotten a win. 13 straight seasons the American League has either won or tied this thing. John Kruk and Bobby V and Nomar here to put their finishing touches on it. Give us a dream matchup, and virtually every matchup is a good one, but which is the one you're most excited to see?
David Price and Albert Pujols, you know, the hard flamethrower, the veteran guy in the National League, the best hitter in the game. I just look forward to this matchup because you know Price is going to challenge him, and Albert doesn't get challenged often. It's going to be a fun watch.
Price and Pujols. There's a little breeze kicks up here, Bobby V. We like that.
It's so cool out here, and you guys are really cool. But the guy who's going to be the coolest at the end of this game has a 4-game All-Star hitting streak after Albert gets walked. David Wright's coming to the plate with .425 batting average against left-handed pitching. Can't wait to see it.
All right, and we'll see Wright face Price, and then maybe Lester comes in to face those guys. And your matchup is?
My matchup is Arthur Rhodes versus anybody. I mean, just the fact of Arthur Rhodes here is 40 years old, 19th season, and his first All-Star game. I mean, this is what the All-Star game is actually all about, is to see people like him, first time out here. I just want to see him get out there and enjoy this wonderful moment.
Hanshi Kuo, the lefty for LA, gets a late call. He may get an early call in this game because there are some lefties that he's going to have to face. Your pick for tonight's game is?
The American League. It's just a different aura and a different confidence about that team you see out in batting practice opposed to the National League.
Mariano's not pitching. George isn't rooting. I'm a National League guy today.
I would have to go with the National League. American League potent offense, but I think the National League just might pull it off today.
Wow, 2 National Leagues, 1 American League. That's good news for a National League that has not won this thing in so long. Don't forget, our coverage, of course, continues right afterwards. You join us right after the game ends, and we will have SportsCenter and baseball tonight. Adrian Gonzalez comes off the bench. Pretty good bench strength. Brandon Phillips solid up the middle. That's our coverage from here for now. We'll see you post-game from Anaheim.
SportsCenter at the MLB All-Star Game is brought to you by Holiday Inn. Stay you with the official partner of Major League Baseball road trips.
Back to our top story of the day here on SportsCenter. George Steinbrenner dying at the age of 80 after a heart attack earlier today. Steinbrenner did indeed restore the Yankee dynasty during his reign. Hall of Famer Yogi Berra had his ups and downs with Steinbrenner, but they did reconcile. The all-time great catcher says he last saw Steinbrenner this past 4th of July on Steinbrenner's 80th birthday.
I talked to him at 8 o'clock in the morning.
And what did you
talk about how he was feeling and everything. He said he felt fine. He felt great. Wish him a happy birthday and everything. But he became a heck of a guy. Nice man. I tell you, we went through some bad times. Everybody else did, but he was a wonderful man. To talk to him on his birthday, I think it was terrific. He sounded real good. He said, I may see you at the Hall of the Old Timers Day. And I was wishing this happened. The only reason I got mad at him, when I got fired in Chicago, I didn't like the way I got fired. Usually the owner calls you up and tells you, we're going to make a change in the team. But he sent the Clyde King to tell me that I was fired. And I didn't like that. I got fired other places. I got fired by the Yankees in '64. I got fired with the Mets, but the owner called me. And I didn't like the way he said it. And that's when I said I'll never come back to the Yankee Stadium. It's sad for me that they talk about it, how close his family.
Very poignant there with Yogi Berra. Again, ups and downs, and telling you specifically why he did have a parting of the ways for a good period of time with George Steinbrenner, but again, they did reconcile, and he came back for All-Star festivities, came back for Old Timers Day, and many different activities over the last few years at Yankee Stadium. Taking a look at some of the business deals of George Steinbrenner, again, at the forefront, at the vanguard, really, of making these deals. A huge deal in 1988 with MSG Network, $500 million, 12 years, but would later start his own network, the Yes Network, in 2002. In between, signed a 10-year, $97 million deal with Adidas. He would buck other teams to better his own position, as would a current owner, similar in drive and charisma. That's Cowboys owner Jerry Jones. Here's Jones and his comments today.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to sit with him at spring games, and of course got to be there opening day last year at Yankee Stadium. And I'm looking, and I'm so proud that he got to take that Yankee tradition and put that new stadium in place. I have a file that is filled with George Steinbrenner notes, and they're very timely. They came at more often than not low times for me, and when I was getting my tail kicked, and he would remind me of times that he had those some adverse things. He did it with such skill. He did it with flair. He did it in a way that made it entertaining for all of us, and he's irreplaceable. He's well, one of a kind. He certainly is a role model, and has been, and will always be a role model for me.
Imagine going into your file, pulling out notes from George Steinbrenner.
It's amazing he wrote that many notes, and that Jerry has a file of separate notes. These are organized individuals.
Kind of cool. You know, under George Steinbrenner's reign, the Yankees had the highest win percentage, 566, most World Series titles, 7, and most division titles, 16, of any Major League Baseball franchise since 1973. His impact undeniable.
And he bought a Yankee team that had run aground in a city where the Mets, at the time, clearly bigger. His plunge into free agency, well chronicled, but even in his later years, he pushed for his own TV network, as we just mentioned, and his new stadium, ensuring revenue advantages in the modern era. So we ask now, is George Steinbrenner the most influential sports owner ever? Bob Ryan and Dan Lebitard on PTI.
Okay, Dan, is George Steinbrenner the most influential owner of all time?
I would say that because of where he worked and because of how he did his job, Bob, I would say he's the most famous owner of all time. So, I mean, I don't know if I'm willing to say he didn't invent a sport. He didn't. He wasn't a pioneer in anything other than spending and behaving crazy in the tabloids.
Well, that's important stuff. I think there were 3 candidates here. Barney Dreyfuss was the most influential owner of the first 30 or 35 years of the century, without question. Then Walter O'Malley, moving the Dodgers west, opened up that, and finally Steinbrenner. And you can't downplay spending the money, because he spent the money that people thought shouldn't be spent and changed the whole landscape of baseball. He signed Catfish Hunter. He signed Reggie Jackson at prices that people thought were exorbitant, but he then changed the whole landscape.
And he had the money to spend because of the city that he worked in. Let me ask you this question. Do you think we're talking about him the same way? If everything's the same, but he doesn't work in New York City, if he's Cleveland's owner and he does everything the same?
Oh, positively we're not, but because it was New York, and the ramifications of that are always enormous in sport and in society and in entertainment, whatever. So, no, but that's where he was, and that's why it's important. He was big enough to do it in New York.
That's the bell. We're done. Back to you guys.
I'm handling the trades.
That isn't the way we say it,
I have the right to call you in the dugout anytime I want.
That's not the way it's going to be, George.
Well, you're damn right it is, and if you don't like it, you're fired.
You haven't hired me yet.
Amidst all the controversy in the Bronx, he still knew how to poke fun at himself. So did many others. Jerry Seinfeld weighing in on the boss. Coming up.
Ground ball. Castro. He got it. A perfect game. Roy Halladay.
And before we get you to the All-Star game, a look back at the best plays of the first half so far in 2010.
The name of the agent is Evelyn Salt.
My name is Evelyn Salt.
Then you are a Russian spy.
I'm innocent! Somebody's setting me up!
You have any idea what she's done for this country? Maybe Salt is who she says she is.
Salt! How many more like you are there?
Like me? None.
Salt.
You think everyone is who they say they are?
Rated PG-13.
Ground control. We have a problem. Switching to lithium power.
I feel better already.
Energizer Ultimate Lithium, the world's longest-lasting AA battery and high-tech devices, just got better. Energizer, keep going.
This is 5-Hour Energy. If 5-Hour Energy were a car, it would be this. Fast, exhilarating, taking you from groggy to, oh yeah, in a hurry. This is coffee. If coffee were a car, it would be this. It'll get you where you want to go, eventually.
Hey, Pop. Hey, Steve, want to trade? Nope. Nice car.
5-Hour Energy. What's driving you?
This guy's into camping. What about that guy?
Oh, yeah. I could definitely go for some serious romance.
Okay. You're so beautiful.
Oh, my back! Maybe just a movie date would be nice.
Yeah.
Zoosk, the online dating site that lets you date your way, whether you want to browse, flirt, or find your soulmate. Zoosk.com.
That's cool. 1800 just poured me a shot. What can your top do? Nothing. 1800 tequila. Change the game.
Gonna try an old sand trap shot here. A little more dirt than ball.
That looked like a slice to me. You need to bend your knees a little more. Keep your head down.
I am wearing a spacesuit.
Just trying to help.
One more. Miles and miles and miles.
There you go. Regular Chichi Rodriguez.
Excuse us, Dr. Olson?
Yeah.
We were just wondering, what do you think of a minimally invasive surgical approach to laparoscopic Nissen fundoplication?
And do you see it playing a role in the treatment of an inguinal hernia?
Oh, good question.
That is a good question. With minimally invasive surgery, we can actually do a lot of good.
When you're a Trinity surgeon, people know you're knowledgeable. Very knowledgeable. Trinity, we're the medical experts.
So, you figured it out. Eastern Iowa Community Colleges fill your tank with fuel to reach a secure future. You're not alone. We attract those who know a quality education can take you to a better place. Our students don't choose us because we have 200 programs available. They choose us because we offer one, the one they want. Our tuitions are affordable and your credits easily transfer to a 4-year university. You can reach a better place when you fuel your mind at Clinton, Muscatine, and Scott Community Colleges.
Register now. New classes start soon.
Back on SportsCenter, Jay Harris, Brian Kenny, talking about George Steinbrenner, dead of a heart attack at the age of 80. Happened this morning. He courted the press, bullied his employees relentlessly, called the boss, in quotes, for his leadership style. Controversial, brash, also restored the luster to one of the proudest franchises in sports. Again, George Steinbrenner dead at the age of 80, remembered by various Yankees, beginning with Paul O'Neill.
When you took the field, you were expected to win. And there's nothing better as a player to play under that kind of rain where if something needed to be added, if something needed to be done, the winning was the important thing. And how important it was that New York deserved teams that won because of what George Steinbrenner did. And, I think that even the guys that are there now, Derek Jeter, Andy Pettitte, Posada, we look back at what happened in the late 90s and even through last year, this whole group of people were changed by what this man did of bringing a team together to win. Behind the scenes, you would see him talk to players that were down. In front of the camera, you saw his intensity, sitting by the dugout or up in his box. You could just feel that winning, the nervousness that winning was everything.
You knew he was sick and you knew someday it was going to happen, but you didn't really want it to happen because he was just a special person, and I was very, very saddened. What Mr. Steinbrenner did was, there was a time when the Yankees were kind of like floundering, and then all of a sudden he took over the team, and he brought that excitement back, because he was a highly competitive guy. He didn't like to lose, so he brought that back to the Yankees. He brought it back not only to players but to the fans and everybody, and that's what he was all about. He demanded excellence. He was a competitive guy and his nature, and it came out, and that's what turned the Yankees around and actually have brought them back to where they are today.
Steinbrenner he was bigger than the players. I can't think of a player that dominated New York sports as he did over the years. I know DiMaggio was great, I know Mantle was great, and Ruth and Gehrig. He was right there with him, and there's no question what the commissioner said. He was a giant in the game of baseball as an owner, and maybe the biggest giant in all owners.
In baseball terms in general, the most successful baseball owner in history goes beyond baseball. It goes to the core of what he brought to the city. I mean, the Yankees were not only always the most popular team with players. There were a lot of times when players didn't really want to play there. So they were not always the biggest draw, but I think he built them into the biggest brand of any professional sports franchise.
For more, Sal Paolantonio joins us from Legends Field in Tampa, the spring training home of the Yankees. Sal, George Steinbrenner had been in failing health, had turned over the operations to his sons. What is the sense of loss there today?
Well, the announcement of his death is about 12 hours old here in his hometown, and there's still a palpable sense of sadness. George Steinbrenner moved here about 35 years ago and quickly became a philanthropic icon in this community. The Boys and Girls Club, the service members at nearby MacDill Air Force Base, Little Leagues, George M. Steinbrenner High School nearby, all benefited from his generosity. While he was known in New York as the bombastic boss of the Yankees, here he was known as the billionaire with the big heart.
You know, when our middle school athletic programs were on their last lifeline, he stepped in and contributed and resurrected them. When he heard of the problems or issues out there, he came in and solved them. There was no problem too big or too small. When he heard of it, he came in and found a solution. He was our community's guardian angel, and for that we'll be forever grateful.
Now, Jay, Tampa Mayor Pam Iorio said earlier, our community has lost a grand and generous person who made differences in ways large and small. Funeral arrangements are still pending. I talked a little while ago on the phone to his good friend Tom McEwen, the former sports editor of the Tampa Tribune, and I asked Tom, where would George be buried? And he said, anywhere George wants to be buried, which seems fitting.
All right, Sal Paolantonio in Tampa. Thank you, Sal. Thank you much. And for much more on the death of George Steinbrenner and everything New York sports, including Bob Knight's reaction to Steinbrenner's death and the scope of their friendship, the only place to go, ESPNNewYork.com.
Well, George Steinbrenner, part of a group that bought the New York Yankees in 1973, the Fun City era of New York. A big part of that era joins us right now. Legendary New York City newspaperman and columnist, Pulitzer Prize winner, Jimmy Breslin. Jimmy, Brian Kenny here on SportsCenter. Thanks for being with us.
How are you?
Jimmy, I'm wondering, I'm fascinated by what your thoughts are. Give us a sense of the 70s New York City and the then new Yankee owner.
Well, I can tell you one thing about Steinbrenner. He came, what year was it, the impeachment? He came to Tip O'Neill, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, to say, I can't be the chairman of the dinner, your congressional dinner that O'Neill ran every year, because the government is bothering me, and they told me not to do it. So he said, O'Neill said to him, shoot if you must this old gray head, but don't you dare touch my dinner, Chairman. He called then to Peter Rodino, who was the head of the House Judiciary. He said, Peter, we're going to have an impeachment. And that was the start of the whole thing.
What?
Steinbrenner, well, he's not here to tell it to you. But he knows he was there. He'll tell you.
Yeah, how, Jimmy, what was he like at working the system? You know, we had his old stadium, the massive renovation. Then, of course, it comes down, and now there's a new Yankee Stadium. How good was he at working the system within New York City?
Well, I mean, I just told you, he could walk up to the Speaker of the House of Representatives. So he had to do pretty good around here. Very good maneuvering through the politics of life. Very good. You know, I liked him. I knew the fellow, and I liked him, and I had good times with him. But he never hit a home run for the Yankees. He never stole a base. You know, he was a real human being. Let's stop deifying him. But he didn't. He wasn't baseball. He had the New York Yankees. Well, I'll take the New York Yankees. That ain't a bad thing to have.
Well, they weren't in great...
He made a lot of money around here.
Yeah, true. But, Jimmy, in 1973, I mean, again, you've been in New York City your whole life. I mean, the Yankees weren't exactly such a hot property. There wasn't a lot of hot property in New York City in the early 70s. Do you think they would have been what they did?
Where did that fable come into? There wasn't a lot of hot property in New York City?
Well, times were down by 1973.
Down? This town, you know, you're living in a phony history. This town never has much trouble. It's New York. I mean...
If Steinbrenner hadn't bought the Yankees then, Jimmy, what do you think would have happened? Would this explosion have happened under another owner?
Well, I don't know. Let's see. Did Rupert have trouble with them? He owned the team, huh? Del Webb, Dan Topping, they didn't have much trouble. There are a lot of people on that team that did wonderfully well with it. So they have a couple of bad years, but that they come back. It's the Yankees. It's New York.
What do you think his legacy is, Jimmy?
Well, he was an owner of the Yankees that won him. He's a good fella, and you know what else? He's not in a record book. His legacy has to be. I don't know. I don't know what his legacy. What is his family? His family's the whole thing. He's very good with them. They seem to love each other. What more do they want?
All right, Jimmy Breslin again.
You better stop deifying this fella. He's a terrific guy, but come on.
Okay.
He didn't play baseball.
But you liked him, you're saying, Jimmy.
Yes, but he didn't play first base.
Gotcha.
Come on.
Understood, Jimmy.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Jimmy Breslin. always quite blunt. Jimmy Breslin joining us here on SportsCenter.
I'm handling the trades.
That isn't the way we say it,
I have the right to call you in the dugout anytime
That's not the way it's going to be, George.
Well, damn right it is, and if you don't like it, you're fired.
You haven't hired me yet.
I'm almost afraid to say something really nice about George Steinbrenner. Steinbrenner in his own words after the break.
Making his Mariner debut, Ken Griffey Jr. at the age of 19 and looking at a fly ball deep in the left field. Way back. Goodbye. See ya. Bye-bye. Adios. Sayonara. It's out of here. So long. Farewell. Junior sends a high fly ball. And there it goes. Going. Goodbye, baseball.
Gather round, y'all. I'll sing you a song about our MVP, the amazing team mom. She rides on Firestones and always comes through, even been known to fix a boo-boo or two. Firestone. From practice to the game and back again, her Firestone tires are a mom's best friend. One sweet way to ride, away or at home. Behind every great team, there's a great team mom. Firestone. Legendary drivers need legendary tires.
Hi, I'm looking to save money on my car insurance. How do I know if I'm getting a good deal? You should talk to the specialist. The specialist? He compares rates side by side. You could save hundreds. It's easy. Great. Okay, Pickles. Do your thing. Oh, that's amazing. I trained him myself. I meant the... Okay.
Same coverage, more savings. Now that's Progressive. Call or click today.
Denny's has 3 delicious new skillets starting at just $3.99. You hear that sizzling? It's the money you just saved burning a hole in your pocket. Just kidding, it's the new skillets.
My name is Chris, and I joined Match because 3 or 4 of my friends got married to people that they met there.
Hey!
Hi, how are you?
Hey. The world has changed. 1 in 5 relationships now begin on an online dating site.
Do you like the snails?
I do, yeah.
Really? There's like 6 pounds of garlic in here.
I know, garlic.
It's gonna be intense when we make out later.
And when it comes to meeting someone great online, there's only one place to go, Match.com. We've led to more dates, more relationships, and more marriages than any other site. Begin something new today.
Oh, boy.
I may be in my pajamas right now, but I'm not going to bed. I'm going to college online. Education Connection will connect you to the right online college for free.
Log on to myschoolnow.com. That's myschoolnow.com.
Nelson Brothers, Schroeder Insurance Agency, and Pekin Insurance. Together, we bring you service and stability for all of your insurance needs. Auto, home, commercial, life, and health. All your insurance needs with one agency and one company. Personalized service and the strength of a strong regional carrier mean we'll be there for you when you need us most. Serving Eastern Iowa and Western Illinois since 1913. Nelson Brothers, Schroeder Insurance Agency. Proudly representing Pekin Insurance. Call 309-762-4173 today.
I've talked a few times about getting a new car, and I never expected it to go almost 10 years now and over 244,000 miles. I couldn't have asked for more for my money.
While the value of a Toyota may last, the amazing deals and great selection won't during Toyota's National Clearance Event. Hurry in and lease the 2011 Camry with 0 down and 0 drive-off for just $259 a month. Or take home Camry with an incredible 0% APR for 60 months. Toyota, value to move you forward.
Back on SportsCenter, Jay Harris and Brian Kenny remembering the life of longtime Yankees owner George Steinbrenner. Major League Baseball planning a tribute to Steinbrenner before tonight's All-Star game. The Yankees owner died this morning after a massive heart attack. He was 80 years old. He courted the press, bullied his employees relentlessly, called the boss in quotes for his leadership style. Tommy Lasorda remembering.
Well, you know, when I woke up this morning, I heard that he had a stroke, a serious one. And then an hour later, I heard that he had died. I was stunned. I lost a good friend. We were very good friends, and I spent a lot of times with him. And, you know, he was a guy who changed the game economically. He's the guy that wanted to win at all costs. His philosophy was those fans pay a lot of money to see our team play. We got to give them a championship. He took a team where it didn't cost him a whole lot of money, and he built an empire, and now the team is worth billions.
That's Tommy Lasorda, Hall of Famer, and George Steinbrenner did buy the team with a group of businessmen in 1973 for about $10 million. It's worth $1.6 billion today. Of course, he was known for his fiery relationships with his managers. Many of his employees, in fact, made 22 changes at manager in his tenure, the most since 1973. As Jimmy Breslin pointed out, he never did play first base, but while he was the owner, look, it's a valid point, but while he was the owner, they had the best winning percentage in baseball during his years, and the Yankees made postseason appearances with Steinbrenner at the helm, the most over that span. That's 19. I'd love to do a whole post on the Breslin interview.
You handled that well.
I don't know. Look, there's more to go into, but anyway, they won 11 pennants, 16 division titles, and 7 World Series championships while he was the owner. Now we go back to a conversation we had with George Steinbrenner, 2002, the boss, in his own words.
When I walk down the street and the different doormen in the different buildings step out and say, good move on this, bad move on this, you know, I love that. That's important to me. That should be important to anybody, not because you feel important, but because you realize what the Yankees and teams in this area mean to the people. That's important to me. Very, very important. It was like when I walk down the street and a cab driver honks his horn away, get him, go do this, do that. I love it. I just love it.
I don't like losing. Winning's important to me. It's second. It's second to breathing. Breathing's first, winning's second.
If you're on a ship in a calm sea, or on a sailed schooner or something, you never get anywhere. There has to be a little bit of turmoil, a little bit of desire to want to exceed and do better. There's 110% in every man, I believe. 10% more than he thinks there is, including myself. And I want to get into that 10% as much as I can from everybody. And maybe at times I go overboard.
I have the right to call you in the door.
That's not the way it's going to be, George.
Damn right it is, and if you don't like it, you're fired.
You haven't hired me yet.
If you want to play for me, you want to march with my army, that's the way you got to march. Because I take the responsibility now for all I've done wrong, but I feel I do know how teams must play to win and how people connected with that team, with the organization, must be disciplined and focused.
Yankees win. The Yankees win.
Loyalty is very important. Loyalty probably ahead of anything else. They've got to be loyal to me, and they got to trust me. Loyalty and trust are the two things you got to have. And I try to give the same thing back. Whereas in the early years, maybe I didn't do that as much as I do today.
Steinbrenner, a game changer in terms of revenue and finances in the last 10 or so years. His Yankees easily made the most revenue of any team in the major leagues, making $3.3 billion in that span with their TV network, now new stadium as well. Next up are the Red Sox, who are nearly $1 billion less than the Yankees since 1999.
Elsewhere today, Hall of Fame linebacker Lawrence Taylor got his chance this morning to respond to charges that he had sex with a 16-year-old girl this past May in a suburban New York hotel room. He was arraigned today on charges that include third-degree rape. Taylor faces up to 4 years in prison if convicted. He's denied the charges to this point, and as our Kelly Naki reports, that did not change today.
Former Giants linebacker Lawrence Taylor pleaded not guilty on Tuesday morning to the charges against him, which included felony counts of rape and criminal sexual act, both in the third degree. As he left the building with his wife, Lynette, Taylor was asked if he was looking forward to his day in court. Hopefully it doesn't go that far, he said. Taylor's attorney, Arthur Aidala, says all options are on the table.
A plea bargain is always in the realm of possibilities. We're not ruling anything out. There is no plea bargain. There is no offer. The track that we're going on is we're heading in the direction of a trial.
Aidala says he plans to challenge all of the prosecution's evidence, a process that will likely take months. No trial date has been set. Taylor will next appear in court here on August 24th. In New City, New York, Kelly Naki, ESPN.
On the field, Lawrence Taylor, one of the best defensive players in NFL history. 8 times a first-team All-Pro. 3 times Taylor was named Defensive Player of the Year. And in 1986, he was named League MVP. Taylor enshrined into the Hall of Fame in 1999.
I can't fire people. It's not in my nature.
The Yankees owner could laugh at himself. Again, George Steinbrenner passing away today at the age of 80. More on the passing of the boss coming up, and we'll have a conversation with Donald Trump as well. And the top 10 plays of the first half as we get ready for the All-Star game tonight.
He's got 2-1 to Griffey. Swung on, base hit. Down the line, here comes Bill Bradley. And that is your game winner.
Now this is quite a treasure. This wine decanter has grooves that create a vortex, which, what is that?
This? The new Miller Lite Vortex bottle?
The craftsmanship, the grooves, where did you get it?
The bar in the lobby?
Fantastic. Next round's on me.
The new Miller Lite Vortex bottle. Its specially designed grooves let that great Pilsner taste flow right out. Taste greatness.
So what is something like this worth?
Well, nothing now.
It's changed the way we do business. I use BlackBerry Messenger. It puts everything all in one chat room that I can go back and reference. I'll do a cut like this one right here. I'll send this to like my other friend who's at another barber shop, and I'll be like, yo, this is what I just did. You know, it's kind of nice to have bragging rights. It's really just a labor of love, you know?
Can you imagine the game played on anything less than the most beautiful grass you've ever seen? Neither can we. Scott's, official lawn care company of Major League Baseball.
State Farm agent Carrie Maddox loves to tell everyone how drivers can get discounts up to 40%. Your neighbors can tell you too. Chances are there's some of State Farm's 40 million drivers. So talk to them. Then call a State Farm agent like Carrie.
Call me.
At Valero, we provide the fuel to help people get where they want to go.
But we're also into wind power, ethanol, protecting the environment, and helping those who are less fortunate through millions of dollars in donations and volunteer work. At Valero, we're doing everything we can to keep all that is America beautiful. Because the one place we really want to help people get to is the future.
Your Tuesdays may be crazy, but dinner doesn't have to be. Any family-sized Pizza Hut Tuscany pasta is just $10. With over 3 pounds of pasta, including breadsticks, that's enough for the whole family. Only on Tuesdays and only at your Pizza Hut.
Welcome to the world of Laveza, where nature meets science. If you have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, or diabetes, you may also have very high triglycerides, too much fat in the blood. It's a serious medical condition. Laveza, along with diet, effectively lowers very high triglycerides in adults, but has not been shown to prevent heart attacks or strokes. Laveza starts with omega-3 fish oil that's then purified and concentrated. It's the only omega-3 medication that's FDA approved. You can't get it at a health food store.
Laveza isn't right for everyone. Tell your doctor if you're allergic to fish, have other medical conditions, and about any medications you're taking, especially those that may increase risk of bleeding. Blood tests are needed before and during treatment. In some, LDL or bad cholesterol may increase. Possible side effects include burping, infection, flu-like symptoms, upset stomach, and change in sense of taste.
Ask your doctor about Laveza, the prescription that starts in the sea.
The Bud Light Top 10, brought to you by Bud Light, the sure sign of a good time. Here we go.
Winning's important to me. It's second to breathing. Breathing's first, winning's second.
Yankees win. The Yankees win.
George Steinbrenner dying today at the age of 80 after a massive heart attack. The Yankee owner had been in declining health in recent years. Here he is in 2008, the All-Star game at the old Yankee Stadium. Steinbrenner was able to make an appearance that night, but not much more. Some reaction now in New York City. Callers calling in, 1050 ESPN New York.
George is a guy, you could probably have two authors write two very different books and paint two very different pictures of George, and they'd both be accurate. And you can't say that about many people.
He was one of the few people, I think, few public figures who actually would do things in public that most people do privately, in terms of like firing people, shouting at people, apologizing for his team, had no problem either praising his players or embarrassing them publicly. These are things that usually go on behind closed doors, and then we get a sanitized version of it. There were no sanitized versions of anything with George Steinbrenner.
For George Steinbrenner and Bob Sheppard, it's just one of those things that's just weird that they both passed away at the same time after being benchmarks in the Yankees system for so long. And, I don't think George Steinbrenner would have wanted to go any other way than just a winner of the last World Series in the last game that he saw. It's just almost ironic in the way that he just wins at everything, and the way to characterize him, as you said, is just win and win and win.
In the last 10 or so years, George Steinbrenner's Yankees easily made the most revenue of any team in the majors. They made $3.3 billion in that span, $1 billion more than their rivals, the Red Sox and Mets, who made the second and third most money. Reaction today on New York TV.
There was only one Babe, only one Yankee Clipper, and there was the Mick and Yogi. And to that end in Yankees lore, there was, is, and only will be one boss. That term is synonymous with the name George Steinbrenner.
A tough day for Yankee fans, a tough day for the Yankee family. This man was larger than life.
It'll be a tough time getting through it, but Yankees, big team, they persevere.
He wasn't going to accept anything less than a World Series championship, and we still hear Yankee people saying that to this day.
He kept everybody in check. He just didn't care about anything except his team, so
He got criticized for that a lot.
Of course, but you know, he didn't get him that many rings for nothing.
He ruled with an iron fist, but at the end of the day, there is no doubt George Steinbrenner's take no prisoners attitude got results.
And again, they're going to remember George Steinbrenner before the All-Star game tonight. And the All-Star game World Series home finale, field rather, on the line. The team with the home field advantage has won 19 of the last 24 World Series and the last 8 World Series Game 7s.
Let's look at the first half, though. It's been the year of the pitchers so far. Perfect games seemingly every week, or perfect game attempts as we hit the traditional halfway point. We can look to the best of the first half. Time now for the Bud Light Top 10. Here we go. Number 10, the biggest game of the year, was a perfect game attempt, Jay. I remember it like it was only yesterday. Yes, Armando Galarraga on the hill, 9th inning. Austin Jackson with some help.
And a swing and a high fly ball toward left center field. Jackson is on the run, still going. He makes the catch. Oh, Jackson!
That's Austin Jackson.
Oh, Jackson! Number 9, Steven Strasburg making his debut against the Pirates. An outstanding 14 strikeouts in 7 innings.
Number 8, Ken Griffey Jr. retiring. Of course, had the controversial moments with allegedly sleeping in the clubhouse, but last great image of him here, though, game-winning single, bottom of the 9th against the Blue Jays, and Griffey retires.
At number 7, Alex Vila thinks he's got the distance for a home run, but Gabe Gross says, you know, I really don't think you do. Nice catch. Go for the wall. Robbing him.
Number 6, bottom of the 9th here, Brooks Conrad of the Braves, down by 3, bases loaded, puts it out. Now, he didn't know he'd put it out, but did he? It's his big moment in the sun, and it's in the top 10.
I've been to 2 rodeos and 3 goat ropings, but I've never seen anything like that.
Game-winning grand slam.
Ichiro at the bat, fouls one way down at third base. Larry Brennerbach comes running out of nowhere into the stands. Catch the man. What a catch.
The ball goes crashing into the stand.
And they're like, there's a large man coming at me. Getting out of the way.
I didn't think they could get out of their cages. Number 4, Angel Pagan of the Mets. Running after this, having a nice season, too, for the Mets. Shoestring catch. And starts off what would be, eventually, a triple play. 8, 2, 6, 3 from Pagan. And again, made the grab. And there we go. We got all 3. 2. It's official.
Yeah, number 3, 2 for the price of 1. Early April, Dexter Fowler. This amazing catch. Helping teammate Ubaldo Jimenez record his first no-hitter. And more recently, Edwin Jackson of the D-backs.
Ground ball towards second.
Pitching a no-hitter of his own, striking out 6 in a 1-zip win over the Rays. There's Jimenez, and everyone's happy. Woohoo!
And we go to number 2.
Oh, we're still at number 3. 2 for the price of 1.
Yeah.
It was just like more video than there was, words.
I would have held up for you. I don't think I could go this long. No, you're right.
Edwin Jackson, that's pitching a no-hitter.
I didn't have that much.
He struck out 6 in a 1-zip win over the Rays. See there.
As I was telling Jimmy Breslin earlier, here's number 2. How about what's better than 2 no-hitters? How about 2 perfect games? Again, should have been 3, but here's Dallas Braden. Don't walk on my mound, A-Rod. Braden gets the perfect game, struck out 6, and then, of course, Braden, maybe you hadn't heard of him, but you'd heard of this man, Roy Halladay.
Ground ball. Castro. He got it. A perfect game. Roy Halladay.
And number 1, opening day, Mark Burley. One of the most amazing plays you will ever see. Scooping the ball in one motion, throwing it between his legs for the out. Halfway through, number 1. I think it stays number 1. That's just what I think. And here's what's happening on SportsCenter at this hour, presented by Verizon Wireless as we cross the top of the hour. Zydrunas Ilgauskas following LeBron James to the Miami Heat. He's expected to sign a 2-year contract later this week. Terms have not been finalized. Continuing in the NBA, reports today that the Timberwolves have agreed to send power forward Al Jefferson to the Jazz for 2 future first-round draft picks. He averaged 17 and 9 last season after coming back from major knee surgery. Going to help fill that void in Utah, left from Carlos Boozer, went to the Chicago Bulls. SportsCenter continues now. Jay Harris and Brian Kenny. He was arguably the most influential and recognized owner in all of sports. George Steinbrenner died this morning at the age of 80.
We've been getting